what's up? What's up? What? You might have to lower me a little. Yeah. What's up? What's up? We're back with another show, and yes, you read it right. Well, actually, it should be mayoral candidate, but we're not gonna hit Ruben with a. We're not gonna give. We're not. Yeah, you know what? We'll give it to him then. That's all right. Yeah, we're doing an interview with Rolando Ramos, Trenton 2026 Trenton mayoral candidate tonight. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
No problem. It's an honor to have you on. And quick question: tell me about yourself. How are you resident? How long How long have you been in Trenton? Tell me.
So, do you want to get my background? So, let me give you my background. So, I grew up in this town. My family was born in Chicago. They brought me here at 2 years old. I'm one of five siblings. My parents are Puerto Rican. They came from the island. They came here. They met. They got married when they were young. They ended up in Chicago. I was born. My two older sisters come back. My both grandfathers were here, grandparents. So that's why they came back to Trenton. I grew up here. I grew up in, we lived on Lamberton, 600 block of Lamberton, and then the 400 block of Center Street. I went through the elementary school. I went to the Old Mount School. I went to Junior 4. Trenton High, graduated from Trenton High in 1987. I played football. There was three of us, Latinos, on an all-black team. Damon Malave and his brother Tino, myself. We played on the first football team, Trenton High football team, to make the state playoffs. So I have some history with that. After high school, I went to college. I went to Rutgers University. While I was in college, I joined the Marine Corps and reserves. I served for 6 years.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I ended with honorable discharge as a corporal. After college, I don't know if you remember Carlos Pacheco.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he recruited me. He knew I was in the college, in the Marines, and he thought I'd be a good candidate to be a cop. He was recruiting really hard. I remember when I came on in 1992, the police department was about 340 officers, and about 14 were Latinos. So I was number 15, number 16.
It was always growing up. There was always a push for more Latinos within the ranks of the police force in Trenton. There was always a push. There was always a Latino, mostly Puerto Rican, trying to push for more Boricuas to hold a badge in Trenton. Few have respectfully followed that that trend. I mean, I feel that we can always use more though.
Yeah, in this town, especially now that like I said, the population is majority Latino.
Yeah.
We need more Latino officers that speak both languages, that are bilingual, because it helps serve the communities.
Yeah, I mean, some of the community are underserved because they can't communicate with the authority. They can't communicate. That's why it's important. Like you said, we need more.
Yeah. It was a challenge for a long time. You didn't have enough guys that were Latino, but my generation of officers, we kind of grew. We had a class of like 8 Latinos all at once, and then we started to see more Latino officers come on, and it helped.
Yeah.
We were hardworking. We were always hardworking folks. I wasn't proactive. I was one of the first original SWAT team members, 1996, I believe. I became a detective. I became a sergeant. I became a lieutenant. And then we had that major layoff. I don't know if you remember in 2011.
Yeah, it was that we had for maybe a couple years. It was maybe 6 years. We had the streets were bad, but crime was like there was this massive hiring, and then 2011 comes in, and then this massive layoff.
Yeah, they laid off over 100 cops.
And crime just like that layoff was what pushed Trenton on the brink of what it is now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's that
And-
particular moment.
And we can go back a little further. When Mayor Palmer decided he wanted to go from a police chief to a police director,
Yeah.
they started bringing in outsiders, had no knowledge of the city.
Don't know the city. Yeah.
Didn't know the people, didn't know the officers. There was a lot of assumptions that were made, and a lot of bad decisions. And so we've had, it's funny because the spikes in homicides and violence always seem to come from directors that aren't from the city. So Joe Santiago, he broke the homicide record under his term. Ralph Rivera broke the homicide record during his term, and then I forget her first name, Coley.
Cooley.
She's got the homicide record. So
She was another incompetent.
yeah, I don't. I'm not gonna say that, but we just had challenges.
I
with
have.
some of these
I don't.
folks,
I'm not a Trentonian. I am an outsider. I just see it as I call it how I see it,
Yeah,
and
and I'm pretty that
how
way.
I observed it.
Right, but I didn't serve under her directly. I was gone by that time. I was retired, and it's sad because here I am. I grew up in this town.
Yeah.
I went to college. I got my master's in 2016. I got re-promoted in 2016, so I was a detective lieutenant. And then when I retired, my goal was to come back and be the police director. Here I am, Latino, like I said, with a master's degree, 26 years on the as a.
You know the city.
Yeah, and the people knew me. I used to play softball in the Roberto Clemente League. I played over 20 years. I used to bring all these cops to come play. I'm a member of this community, and people know me. And so when that opportunity came up and I was rejected, it kind of put me in a bad spot because I wanted to get that experience. So I ended up leaving. When I retired, so in 2019, I left to go become a police chief, a police director somewhere in this, around the country. We ended up in Kentucky, and in 22, I got an opportunity to go to California. And I was the chief of police on an Indian reservation. We were talking about the Braves, but I was, and you were talking about indigenous earlier. We had a little.
Yeah.
And I was actually on a reservation, one of the larger ones in California. I was up in the mountains. So you got a Puerto Rican kid from Trenton, New Jersey, up in Northern California.
How did they like receive you? I mean, did they receive you there, respectfully, or did they just?
Oh no, they were very respectful.
I mean, because at the end of the day, we kind of come from the same come from the same dirt. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're cousins basically.
Yeah, but their perspective is a little different.
Yeah.
Anyone that's not part of that
Correct.
that reservation, that tribe,
You're still an outsider.
You're still an outsider.
Yeah. You may relate, but you're still an outsider.
Right. And I'm pale. I'm a light-skinned Puerto Rican. California doesn't have a lot of Puerto Ricans over there.
No,
it's mostly Mexican or Latin American.
Yeah.
And so, me being Puerto Rican and coming from New Jersey, it was a big change for them too. That they had to adjust to me as well. Even though I'm learning the new culture, learning
learning new streets, the
whole
new culture, new
dynamic.
people. I mean, because even though it's still the United States,
Oh, yeah.
You're on the West Coast.
Right.
And granted, you're from out here. We move at a different pace.
Oh, yes.
They move a little slightly slower.
Oh, yeah. And I was up in the mountains. The reservation was up in Northern California. So it was up in the mountains, a lot of trees. The redwoods, I don't know if you've ever heard those.
Yeah.
The redwoods are humongous,
Yeah.
that. And so that's the area I was in. I dealt with things that I had never done before. Cows and sheep and, but there was a big drug problem. That's one thing. I've worked in 4 different departments here in New Jersey, 2 in Kentucky, and then as chief of police in California. And the one thing that's the same in every type of environment is drugs.
Drugs are still the same.
Drugs. We
Drugs
had
are still addictive.
Yeah, we had a two-week period back there in California where 8 people died of overdose from fentanyl. And now you got to remember, fentanyl came on after I had retired here from New Jersey. And so I go to Kentucky, we deal with meth, and we hadn't really done, New Jersey.
Yeah, we
deal with marijuana, cocaine, heroin, and both.
And of course fentanyl, but
right, and that came on after I
is,
was gone already.
Yeah, meth is probably more
West Coast.
The western, north too, but it's more towards the west.
So it was new to me,
Yeah.
and learning how to handle that and deal with that. Now, I tell people, I was the chief of police, so I was accountable. And over there, the politics of a tribal nation are completely different.
Yeah,
And
they run it.
But it's all the time. You know, Trenton has its politics, right? New Jersey has its politics. But working on a tribal nation, it's all the time. You know what I mean? You're accountable all the time, and people don't recognize that. And until you experience that, you're not going to understand what I'm talking about, because it's just a constant questioning, constantly, scrutinizing everything you do, everything you say, everything you put together. But I come from New Jersey. I have thick skin, and I my goal was to leave it better than I found it, and I did that. And so when the chairman that hired me, he got replaced, and the new chairman decided to go in a different direction. So tribal nations out in California, you have three authorities. You have federal, state, and then the tribal. I carried all three. But the chairman that replaced the one that hired me, he wanted only to go federal. And that was not the path I wanted to continue, because I had already started going in one. And so I said, you know what, it's time for me to resign and go back home. And so, when I came back to Kentucky, my family wanted to come back to Jersey. My mother turned 80. All my family's here, all our family. My sons wanted to come back. My son had gotten out of the Marine Corps. He had served for 5 years. So he came to Kentucky, and he was like, this ain't my house, Dad. This ain't my home.
Yeah.
And so we were like, all right, well, it's time to go back home. And so we came back to Jersey last August. So I've been here since August. We live in the city. And there were some questions about I rent because I had a house in Kentucky, and it recently sold. So now we're in the process of looking.
Recently buying,
right?
Yeah.
But you can't, and it was tough, to own both. So when it was on the market. Now we're finally free of that.
It's tough to own a house in a different state.
Yeah,
but
I wasn't going back and forth.
Yeah.
We had it emptied out. We moved to New Jersey. It was just on the market. I know there was some question about that, and people, without even contacting me, were putting out this kind of information.
Well, I mean, it's people have done that before in the past. Oh, yeah. But I mean, you are, like you said, you're from Trenton.
Yeah.
You worked in Trenton. You your whole entire police career in Trenton.
Yes, sir.
So just because you went taking different jobs doesn't mean you're not.
Not from Trenton.
You're still a Trentonian. You still know the people. You still know. You know the landmarks. Like if we're talking about landmarks, y'all. Oh yeah, I know where that's at. I know where that's at. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about the old mosque school, right? I know where that's at. That old mosque school still stands, right? They don't even use that building, right?
It's an apartment building.
Oh, it's an apartment building now.
Yeah.
But I remember when that building just sat there vacant
for a while. Yeah.
I used to live in the little white house that was like in the. Right out near, like it was a little white house stuck
in the back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I used to walk to school, as a kid, And,
so I mean,
that was Trenton life.
Some Trentonians, that are transplants, they don't even know like landmarks.
Right.
I mean, I'm not, and I'm for the Trentonians that are transplants that know Trenton, I'm not trying to. We're just trying to make it a point that he once left. He followed different opportunities. Trenton, and New Jersey has this thing. It's like the rubber band effect. Mm-hmm. You go all the way up, and then somehow you just circle right back, and you end up in Trenton or in New Jersey somewhere. Right. That's what Jersey has, this rubber band effect. Mm-hmm. I know people who went to Florida. I want to retire. My mom went to Florida to retire. 2 years later, she came back. I'm like, you said you wanted to go to Florida, but you wanted to come back. So it's not just you.
No.
Everybody, and everybody goes for different opportunities. Like you went for different opportunities for work, but like I said, the rubber band effect. You came right back, and you're here. Oh, yeah. You wanna, you want to be a vessel for change and trend.
Absolutely. So.
That's the reason why you came back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One of the reasons.
My family's here. My friends are here. I grew up here.
Everybody your whole family said, I want to go back. So, all right, this is where my family and friends live. Might as well.
Right.
And, like you said, it's hard to uproot yourself and but you came back, but you know the town, you know the people know you. You like you said, you have friends here. You know, Damian Milave. Shout out to David Milave.
My family. My mom still lives here in the city. She lives Stokely Village. My brother is a pastor here. He has a church on Clinton Avenue. My younger sister, that's my younger brother. My younger sister, she's also a teacher in the Trenton school system. My oldest sister, who passed away during COVID, she was also a teacher for the Trenton school system, and I was a police officer. You know, so we've
your family's community.
This is our community. My sisters, my brother, we have always, this is always our home. And so when I come back, it's not some, I'm home. This is, you know what I mean? And so when I come back, and I would visit, and I would look around. You drive around. You go, man.
Since you're saying that, I want to know.
Yeah.
What is the first food you came back and you tried? The first food. What is the first thing you?
Pizza.
Oh, there's no pizza over there.
No, it's horrible, bro.
we
every time you come here, like we would come visit. My wife and I, my kids.
You try to take some pizza back, right?
You had to get some pizza.
Let's take a couple pies back.
Then Italian food. You're not getting that Italian food, and Puerto Rican food.
Yeah.
You in California they don't, like I said, they don't have Puerto Ricans.
No.
In Kentucky they don't have Puerto Ricans, and so that arroz con gandules, pernil, you're not getting that.
That becomes exotic.
Right?
That becomes exotic. If you don't know how to make it,
and luckily my wife knows how to make it.
If you
Right.
even if your wife knows how to make it, your mom knows how to make it a different way.
Oh yeah.
Or somebody, everybody,
grandmom, or
right?
Yeah.
There's always somebody that my mom cooks great. But my grandma, oh my God, it's like Mom, I'm sorry, but grandma, you
right.
ain't got nothing on grandma. She makes my mom makes amazing food.
Right.
But I'm just that's I had to ask you, like, what's
No,
the first thing
because it's funny because that's,
you said the culture the culture changes.
That's a big thing. You
have to
over
adjust to
there
the food.
things slow down.
Yeah.
The food is different.
You got to adjust to the food, adjust to the water, adjust to everything.
Everything. And are there good things? Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The taxes are way down. Cost of living is way down. You can actually afford to live comfortably. New Jersey, it's tough because we're in the Northeast. It's a high tax state. So it's difficult if you're not. You don't have a good career. You don't have a good job. It can be difficult for you.
Yeah, and if you're not rooted, it's hard.
Oh yeah, and you see that here in Trenton.
There's not a lot of opportunities out here.
The percentage of those folks that are considered poor or in poverty is like 25% in the city, and that's horrible.
It is. This is the capital. It's the capital. And it's not even. It's only 8 square miles, right?
Yeah, 7 square miles.
7.
Yeah, and you're right. This is the capital, New Jersey, and you feel like it's been abandoned by the state. They got a couple buildings here.
I think the state, like you said, the state. I think the state treats Trenton like the state treats it like it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Like Trenton's supposed to be the capital, but is Trenton really the capital? That's a good
question because. If it was me, if I'm the governor or if I'm a state legislator, I would be hurt that my state capital is considered the worst state capital in the country. That would bother me. I would say that we can't continue this way. We either are going to work hand in hand with the city government, or we're going to push to make these changes because they're not doing what needs to be done.
And it's not like we're not here talking about all of the politics. We're talking about the system.
Right.
The system is set up to disenfranchise the capital. That's
how it looks.
I'm born and raised in Trenton.
Right.
And my mom moved me out of Trenton for the better schools, but Trenton, like you said, it's still my home. And I always want the best for Trenton. And what I see is it gets neglected, it gets ignored. Trenton should be a place where everybody wants to go. Nobody wants to go down there.
Right.
Like you see videos on YouTube, don't go down here, don't go here. And Trenton is not that bad like that. It's because the narrative is built that way. So it's built on fear, so people don't come down here. So, I'm not saying that. I'm saying they don't go down there. So the perceived notion and the perceived, assumption is that okay, we can't go down there. So these criminals saying shit. You know what? It's bad. They're scared. Let's just continue to do
Right.
this.
Let's wild out. Right.
Let's just
And that's the thing.
That's
a lot
what
of
it
it.
is.
A lot of it is innuendo, rumor. They play up how bad it is because you get that street cred.
correct.
You know what I mean? And it's really, like you said, most folks live comfortably in the city. They try to
Not all
go to
parts
work.
of Trenton is bad.
They come home, they take care of their properties, they take care of their kids, and they live good lives.
Yeah.
But we've created, is it violent? Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that. Oh, it's a violence.
There's parts.
But but you have parts that are very
quiet.
quiet.
Yeah.
That
They're
people
serene,
live
yeah.
clean.
People live great lives.
But you know what it is? It's home ownership too.
Yeah.
We become a city of apartments and rental homes.
Well,
and
most of
the homeowners.
Most of the homeowners don't live in Trenton.
Well, that's the thing. They own the properties, but they're not residents of the city. And so, when you get community is when people actually commit to your town, to your city, to your neighborhood. And right now, you don't see that.
Well, the people who invest in the city, are the ones, the owners. They don't invest their time. Well, some of these people, if they rent, they're only temporarily planting their
Right.
feet. They can't plant a flag and leave it there.
Right.
Because it's not their place.
Right.
So it's not. It's not. The people are least likely to invest. They're not going to put a flower bed if they're renting it there.
Right.
Why am I going to beautify his house
When I get nothing
if
from
I'm
it when
not
I
getting
leave.
from it? So when I leave,
Right.
so that's when you said ownership. There's no ownership because and I know when the Puerto Ricans lived there, and I'm not singling out everybody because I'm also using the Italians. When the Puerto Ricans and Italians lived in the burg and outside the burg, Columbus, the former Columbus Park that is now Unity Square Park, like. I seen with my own eyes. I seen Italian mothers throw hot water or pots and pans to clean their porches. I seen the Puerto Rican moms doing it. My mom used to do it.
Right.
My neighbors used to do it. I seen them all. So it was home ownership. They would clean.
Right.
It wouldn't just.
There was a commitment, and
They wouldn't just sweep the front. It was you would every weekend. Somebody's mom would be out because I know you.
Oh,
you
yeah, my
remember
mom
seeing
did
it.
it. Yeah.
A lot of people did it,
Yeah.
and it was ownership. It was you was seeing a parent washing their car out
Right.
front of the house, and you're like, man, that's ownership because he's washing his car in front of his house.
Yeah.
You don't see that shit no
Right.
more.
You don't see it anymore, and that's because, like I said, we become a city of renters, and so we have to go back to that. We have to push, and what it is, if you look at home prices, right, New York City, nobody can afford New York City.
No.
Philadelphia, nobody can afford Philadelphia, but you can afford Trenton.
Well, that's what.
And what's been happening, let me finish this thought. What's been happening is that the investors, because people know that investors are looking to buy properties, so they raise the value, and they're not valued at the prices that some of these homes are being sold for, because now you take out the people that actually want to live here.
Yeah.
Now who you're setting your price to are the investors. And so what's going to happen? They invest, they take the property, they create homes for rent,
Yeah.
or they break them down into apartments, and here we are continuing
You're
the cycle.
You're putting government subsidies in there,
Right.
and instead of marketing to people that want to come down from you want to come down from the New York,
Right.
That's what they want to bring. They're trying to bring the people from New York that can't afford New York
Right.
down, but you're not giving them anything.
Right.
And-
Because the prices of homes, because like I said, they're pricing them to sell them to investors as opposed to people that want to move here, that want to live here. And so instead of buying a home for $180,000, which is probably the market rate, they're selling it for $350,000 because they know they'll get that from an investor. So
We're gonna take a short break, and this is In My Circle. If you like what you're hearing, if you give me hit subscribe so you can get more videos, you can get more content, share, like, and even comment. Let me comment below. Let me know what you think, and we're gonna be back in a couple minutes. All right, this is In My Circle, and I'm Ralph, also known as DJ Noise.
cool.
I was waiting. see the. We're back. We're live. What's up? What's up? What's up? I can't hear. What is up? We're back, and we're back with. Good. We're back with Mr. Ramos.
Yes, sir.
How you doing? And thank you for sticking with us for another segment. And we were talking off air about your vision. And my first question would be, what is your take on the water, on the Trenton Waterworks situation?
Yeah, you and I were just talking about that.
I figured. Let's just
we jump right back into that.
Yeah.
It's you have to go back in history and where it began. This situation. This isn't a new problem.
Yeah.
This has been going on for many years. If we all remember, we were just talking about this under Mayor Palmer. He tried to sell it, and they did a referendum, and the people of the city said no, not to sell it. He decided not to run again after that, and the attention to it never happened. The next mayor and the following mayor didn't pay attention to it. The council members didn't pay attention to it. So it's been slowly deteriorating, right? We're to the point now that it's an emergency, and it's going to cost $750 million to fix.
Their exact. It's at a critical state at the moment, and any like emergency will put the water.
Right.
We won't have water for 2-3 weeks.
Right.
So we're living. It's like, how certain citizens. Let's say people live check to check. We're living day to day at a dire state with the Trenton Waterworks.
And you have to say to that every council person, every mayor, they hold a certain responsibility. You've been on council for 4 years, and we're still in this position. You didn't do your job. If you're the mayor of the last 8 years, and we're here now, you didn't do your job.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. I'm tired of doing another report, because all that does is just kicking the can down the street, and so nothing gets done.
Well, the unfortunate business of passing the buck to the taxpayer is our water bill is going up.
Well, that's the thing. There were opportunities. If they had taken the opportunities when they did the I forget the bill and during COVID, there was money.
Yeah, it was I think about $20 million.
No, they were talking billions of dollars.
There was money. There was money during COVID. There was money.
Oh yeah, to take care of infrastructure.
Yes.
In that big bill that was under President Biden, and the city of Trenton didn't apply for those funds, didn't apply for those grants, and so they say the waterworks came up with I don't know if you've seen the plan.
Yeah,
$750 million.
I was there.
And it's broken down by pieces. What each phase is going to cost, but you don't know where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's federal money. You don't know if it's state money. I just read recently the state I don't know if they're going to do it now, but they were talking about tapping into the pension fund to give Ewing, Hamilton, Lawrence.
I'll explain that
money, right, to so that they could build their like a mini water plant.
The plan is this: the outside townships who hold majority investment in the water, because most of that money is coming from them too, not just Trenton.
Right.
So there's litigation right now. There's a standing lawsuit, all the surrounding mayors, because it's either A, Trenton, you fix this and address it to give us clean water, or A, we're going to take you to court, and if that doesn't work, we're going to file a lawsuit in order for us to be let go, so we can create our own water infrastructure, and just you have your own little bubble. And like you said, Trenton did this to itself, because as a customer myself, I pay faithfully. I deserve
clean water.
I deserve clean water.
I don't care. And access to water. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
I don't care how they get it. At the end of the day, I don't want us to be in the next Flint. And we are literally...
We're on the verge.
We're on the verge.
Oh, yeah.
And, you're talking about, what is that? Legionnaires in the water system. You're talking about, the reservoir is outdated. It's one of the oldest reservoirs
In the country.
In the country.
Yes, sir.
And I know this because, like I said, I'm on multiple.
Yeah.
committees.
But this is
I'm
all
a com-
public information.
Yeah.
If you follow city politics, if you follow what's been happening in the city,
Yeah.
that's one of the most critical situations that's been happening. And like I said, the fact that they've kicked the can down the road, each mayor, each council, they all own this, and to act like, oh, I got an idea now,
Yeah.
that's not fair.
100%.
That's disingenuous, and it actually looks like, like you're outside of what's been happening when you're actually own part of that. And so here we
There's
are.
no accountability. There's no accountability.
Right. There's no account. So now, what do? We're still talking about it. We're still having more studies done. We know the problems.
We'll
It's
be
not,
5
it's
years
not
from now, we'll-
unknown. It's a known problem.
5 years from now, we'll still be in the same
Right.
situation.
And until someone says
Enough is
enough,
enough. Yep.
we need to figure out how we're going to pay for this. We need to beg the government, the federal government, give us money. We need to go to the state and say, you are part of this too. You've allowed this. We need money. And the state, the city, we're going to have to figure out a way.
The state has told them. The state 100% has told them.
You got to fix
This is and the narrative that they push is that, oh, you're trying to steal you're trying to take our our
infrastructure.
our utility.
Our utility,
It belongs to the city. It's a part of our identity. It's about racial, and the state is like, no. And you're talking about experts. They're like, no, this is not about anything about this. This is about reality. Is that your water system? It is working only because we are helping you.
Right.
We're helping it stay afloat. Right. Without us, you're done. You're a sinking ship, and you have to do something.
Right. Well, part of that too is the hiring. Right. They're not hiring the people they need to hire. With the DCA oversight, they're limiting who they can hire, how much they pay. So it's a circular problem. Right. The state has said we need to do this. But the state is also controlling
Correct.
who you hire and when you can hire. And so it's become a state and city problem. It's just that the state kind of has pushed that off only on the city.
Because they're trying to be, because
They don't
again,
wanna
back
invest
to
in it,
nobody,
right?
there's no accountability on either side.
So we need to figure that out. That's a critical infrastructure. It actually, if it's run properly, if it's in good health, it can actually make money for the city. It will benefit the city. But when it's been neglected for
it
the
should
last
benefit.
30 years,
It's crazy you say that. It should benefit because, Trenton Waterworks sells, and I don't want to speak too much on this.
Yeah.
We don't want to spend the whole entire rest of the segment on the water issue, but they sell water. They should be able to sell more at a cleaner, level.
at a better price. Yeah. So let me kind of bounce off something else.
Let's move on for the water.
But see that's part of the bigger picture when it comes to Trenton. The lack of leadership, right? Lack of the government doing its job. You ride around the city, potholes everywhere, almost every part of the city.
And they're bad.
They're bad. They're not little holes. I mean,
It's like you need
right?
to.
And that's
You
basic.
need to get ready for war when you go out there. I mean, that's sad.
But that's basic government function.
Yeah,
How dirty
it's
the
taxpayer
city is,
service.
right? How dirty the city is. That's basic government function. When you call the city hall, you should get a response.
Nobody wants to do work anywhere.
What's
Nobody over there.
Well, they answer the phone and they're real sweet to you because I can't complain. They've done a good
yeah.
job with that. But the response
Correct.
is not there. I had a illegal dumper dump 2 mattresses and a dresser next to my house. I called for 4 months. I left my name, my number, please help me. Nothing. Because I live on the border of Ewing and Trenton, and I saw a Ewing dump truck, waving down, please do me this favor, man. Because I didn't know if there were bed bugs in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have this junk next to my house. And thankfully they were willing to do it, and they did it. But it just shows that the government doesn't work. And
Absolutely.
People go, oh, that's just no, that comes from leadership. If your leadership isn't accountable, right, then the people aren't accountable.
I agree.
Because they follow the leader. They follow, most folks are going to say, if this guy doesn't come to work on time, he's never around, he's not paying attention, so I'm going to get over it. And that's what's happening in our city.
I think a little bit is probably a lot of people. They got too comfortable. You know, the taxpayers demand, you know, more from from the public servants. You know, there's
Right.
you can see video of some public servants, you know, ticketers cursing back at, you know, like, come on, this is not how public service should be.
Right.
You know, we talked about council people cursing at each other.
Right.
You know, it's and calling in the mayor names, no matter if we don't like him or not.
Right, you have to
You know,
respect
you
the
have to
authority,
exactly.
the title. Right, absolutely.
You should at least call him by his name.
Right.
You know, and like you said, this is the lack of leadership. You know, and I think, I don't say this because to throw, you know, support at anybody, but I think if you were a mayor, the mayor of Trenton, I think you could probably work hand on hand with the police force, because you come from the police.
Right.
You know how that system works. You grew up in that system. You know what I'm saying? Because you put most of your life behind the badge.
But not only that, I worked for the city as well, not just for the police department. I worked for the city. You know what I mean? So in terms of contracts, in terms of engaging with the different departments, as a supervisor, as a leader, I was a lieutenant. I ran a district, so I engaged with inspections. I engaged with the fire department. I engaged with different other departments. So it's not limited to just law enforcement.
Yeah.
But having an understanding, actually working for the city, gives you an understanding of how things operate.
Yeah, you know how the infrastructure is.
I know the people. I know how to get things. I know how to communicate, because I've been part of the system. And so, we talked about what separates me from the other candidates. I've been a leader. I retired as a detective lieutenant, like I told you before. I went out to California. I was a chief of police. It was a small department. I'm not bragging that it was 2,000 cops.
You still did the service. It's
Right.
still.
And it was in a community that I had never even ever engaged in. It was a native nation. It was completely out of my wheelhouse, right? Something. So I had to become comfortable in that situation as a member of that community, but also as now a leader of that community. And I, if you go back, you talk to some of the people that I work with and worked for and who worked for me, you'll see that there was a learning period, because there's always that adjustment.
Absolutely. There's no.
But then there was success after success after success of moving the department forward, of engaging with the community. Let me give you a quick story. So my assistant, she was part of the football league that they had. And so I'm a big sports guy, love sports. I was coaching my kids when they were young and everything. And I go, hey, I'll be interested to help out. Next day, she comes in. She goes, "Oh, let me tell you, you're the head coach of the Pee-wee, the youngest."
So
group."
they.
So I became the head coach.
You became a coach.
The head coach of one of the levels, and
That's how I started coaching. I went into my son's T-ball tryout, and I came in and decked out in Braves gear like I am now, and I was like telling them, how to, and they're like, "Yeah, we need him.
We need you, right?"
him." And they asked me, just to be quick.
Yeah.
They asked me, and I'm like, no, I don't want to be. I'm like, I told the wife, I'll be an assistant. She was, no.
They need a head coach.
They want you to be a coach. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
And 4 years later, here I'm still doing it.
And that's where I was. I liked it because it connected me to the kids.
Get back to
and they saw me. So I was a chief, right, chief of police. But when the kids saw me after I coached them and was a part of, I was coach. I was no longer chief. I was coach. And they would see me.
It also shows that you can be approached even though you're a cop.
Right.
You gave them the human side of it.
Oh yeah. And they would come and give me hugs, coach. The parents were very happy to see that, because in a lot of those kids' lives, what they've seen is police involvement. A lot of those kids were being raised by their grandparents, by their aunties. And
you're just giving them something else that.
Right. So they gave them something else
something positive.
Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up running the organization for my last year there, the football, and I now coach baseball too. So that involvement with the community, I don't do it where I'm bragging, but it was important to connect with kids. To
I mean,
see a different
I don't think
side.
I don't look at it as bragging. I think it's I mean, because I'm a coach, I can
Yeah.
I can relate. You know, I don't brag. I just I think it's a proud thing to give back.
Oh, yeah.
To teach the kids, to see them from one stage to from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. You see them all come together. It's amazing.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
I loved it.
Rewarding.
I loved it. It was a good time. I enjoyed, like I said, interacting with the kids, the parents, the other coaches. I had a great time, and I'm a big sports guy, like I said. So I played in the basketball league. We won the championship. So being a part of the community is in my bones. So even if I don't win, to be mayor.
So that means you might be if he wins the mayor,
I'll be a coach.
he might be a coach. Like he might go out to be a coach. You never know. You never know. He might be your next coach in baseball, basketball.
That's it.
You never know.
But having that experience, talk about teamwork, talk
Yeah.
about working together. All those qualities are built into a coach.
Yeah,
You
well,
kind of are able to.
You the mayor. If you're the mayor, it's like you being the coach. It's the whole city is your team.
Absolutely.
You just you just have to move the right pieces in the right spots.
and be an example of how to do things. Don't be a guy just for photo ops. Be there at the with your sleeves rolled up, getting the job done. That's what I intend to do. All right.
Well, you heard it. You heard it from Mayor Hopeful Ramos. If you think you like the show, subscribe, like, share, comment, and if you're watching from Trenton, and you feel that you wanna vote for him, hit your vote.
Absolutely.
In November.
Yeah, if you guys want me to, meet with me anytime, reach out. My website is Rolando Ramos for TrentonTriumph.com. Has a lot of good information, and you can volunteer, you can donate, you can reach out, and we can have conversations. I can continue to show you what I'm about, and I thank you guys for watching in and tuning in. And I thank you, sir, again.
Thank you.
for the
Appreciate it.
opportunity.
And good luck. I wish you well and I hope you win.
Thank you.
And this is In My Circle. This is Ralph, also known as DJ Noise. And we're out. Peace. Till next time.